Yeah.
I saw those when I was in pain on the couch because my elbow was dislocated. We hadn't worked it out yet, and I couldn't sleep in a bed. So I just got to see that and then be semi-delirious in pain for the entire night.
That sounds great.
That's how I first saw Samurai Jack. I had 102-degree fever and I was vomiting everywhere.
So naturally, you have fond memories of that, huh?
Well, I remember laying there and watching the animation and thinking, this is so cool. I'm pretty sure I was hallucinating on top of the show, but I still
it was
really
a way better show.
I still really like the show. I'm not going to lie.
I don't think she actually saw the show. She spent 2 hours staring at the test card.
She just woke up. There was a Samurai Jack DVD in her hand. She's like, I guess I watched it.
What was Samurai Jack about, Amanda?
Samurai named Jack. God, duh.
So there's an evil bad guy named Aku who sends a guy back in time, or no, forward in time, to keep him from killing him. To keep the good guy from killing the bad.
What?
So in case you can't tell, I leave in less than 24 hours to go overseas for 3 weeks, and I may be slightly spacey.
Here's the thing. You don't get tired before you do something horrible.
Yes, you do, because you fucking stress about it. That's why.
I mean, that's why I'm always tired, but... Well,
Gotta be
actually,
like
talking
Dexter.
an evil bad guy, I'd want to see a film with an evil good guy.
An evil good guy?
Yeah.
Haven't they already done that? Isn't that the
Despicable Me.
plot of...
Despicable Me, yeah.
Yeah.
Despicable Me. It's so fluffy, I'm gonna die.
Second film's coming out in like 2 months.
I did not expect them to go that direction. Like
I didn't either.
that suddenly, like that completely undercuts the thing that made the first movie interesting. Like the first movie, it starts off like, ooh, creepy sci-fi spy thing, and then nope, it's actually a family drama. And now it's starting off as family drama, and oh my god, it's a spy thing. Weird, right? Like I guess
Well,
how could you make a sequel?
But it might be really good.
Oh, it could be amazing. I had no expectations for the original Despicable Me. I fucking loved that movie.
I thought, I really liked it. Although the little yellow things remind me of...
They remind me of the Rabbids from Ubisoft.
Yes, and Kerbal Space Program.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's something like weirdly distinctly French about their humor, and that's why I think the Rabbids. There's just the way that they interact.
Bug-eyed, retarded-looking things.
The English perspective
you
might
think
say
of
that,
French.
sure.
No, I mean, I'm not talking about the French. I'm talking about the things that
Yeah, I
the
know
French
what you're
draw.
talking about.
Speaking of, I need to ask you for advice on rail in Europe at some point before I leave, which would be within the next 6 hours or so.
I can give you lots of advice.
Oh, good.
Well, James, do you want to start us off?
Just give me a sec.
Okay. We'll sit and wait. Da,
You
da,
trying to get me
da,
drunk,
da,
Amanda?
da,
No.
da,
It's just really good
da,
beer.
da,
Why are you
tried
trying
it
to
yet?
get James drunk, Amanda?
It's just really good beer.
Yeah.
Really good.
Okay, my enthusiasm is not quite up there.
James
so-
just moved this week, so he's very tired.
Yeah.
And Randall just moved this week, too, so he's also very... Well, I don't know. Is he very tired? Does Randall ever get tired?
I don't know. Randall is Randall. Randall, are you tired?
I personally think that when we aren't in the room with him, he just powers down.
Going into sleep mode.
And I feel bad because I didn't help anybody move because I'm a horrible friend, but I was testing photographic methodology all week, so...
To be fair, you were stressed about heading overseas and wondering whether or not you had a methodology that would even work.
That's true.
It's okay.
Good news is that it works.
We all stress about things like that. And that's why I stress about my disparity stuff.
Your disparity stuff is going to be fine. I can help you through that now.
Well, I mean, because I taught you how it works.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, you want someone else to start this off, James?
God damn it! It's gonna be one of these things where I just sound miserable again.
No, you'll perk up halfway through it, just like
you're
you
just
always
gonna
do.
you're gonna leave in all the bits where it's like just sigh and all you can.
Well, with this particular set, it might be appropriate.
I would say, I'm actually almost thinking I don't edit anything at this point. So far, this has actually been...
Okay, hey guys, welcome to Paleo After Dark, our bi-weekly paleontology podcasts on interesting science of the dead and decaying.
The dead and decaying are very
I
interesting.
like that. That's very soap opera.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait. The lifestyles of the dead and decaying.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's for rich socialites.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean that's the thing. As you discussed previously, English soap operas versus American soap operas. The English soap operas are looking at the poor people, and the American soap operas are looking at the rich.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. You've watched EastEnders. It just makes you want to go on a rampage. And so standard disclaimers, which I guess we don't need to put on here, but we're going to swear our opinions of those of everyone in the University of Kansas.
No, he meant the opposite. Oh, God.
And you can totally just walk up to anybody that ever went there and they will agree with us.
Sure, yeah. In fact, they'll just know us like anyone.
In fact, everything we say is immensely litigious and should be used in court.
And if they don't know us, you tell them to fuck off.
That's right, because they didn't really go to the University of Kansas.
Their degree is invalid.
So why don't we introduce the players?
Right, yeah.
I forgot to do that last two podcasts.
We haven't done
More
that
like the last
forever.
6 podcasts. Yeah.
Well, I'm the one you can understand, and I'm James.
Yeah, of course.
I'm Amanda.
She's female.
I'm the quiet one.
His name's Randall.
His name is Randall, and I'm Kurt. Hi.
The bum.
Hi.
I kind of like the one of the people that talks the most introduce himself as Kurt. That's kind of like an oxymoron.
Yeah, no. I actually really like the fact I really like the fact that if you spell my name out like completely Curtis, I believe it translates to courteous one, whereas if you give my nickname, it means short and rude.
We're definitely more short and rude.
Oh yeah.
My name translates as
James?
the usurper who will carry away Christ and supplant his flock.
Oh, good.
I have no idea what Amanda translates to.
My name translates as Wolf Shield.
I wonder if Amanda's just a feminine version of like Adam from Man.
Maybe I'd have to look it up.
Or that's Joshua is from Man. Never mind.
I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe I'll Google it if I can remember.
We can find you easily enough. I mean, it's going to be interesting because
it's a screamingly popular name these days.
Mm.
It is, but it's going to be. If you want to take the meaning, giving your middle name, we probably want to look at what it means in France, and it does mean different things in different countries.
That's true,
Yeah.
depending on what language. That's true. Like my last name means nothing.
Your last name means nothing.
Well, it
at
means
all.
nothing in most languages, but if you look at Swedish, it means falcon.
Well,
Cool.
yeah, no, I mean, I assume it's just as short than a falconer in some way.
It's German. Well, normally it's spelled with a U. We took the U out because
It's okay. Normally, my name is spelled like this. Spelled. My surname is spelled differently normally. I think I'm the only lamb. My family's the only one that spells Lambsdale this way because at some point some Italians got a hold of it.
And I just mean from the Grove, apparently.
Aren't you named after a truck?
No, my first name is after the truck.
Okay.
Yeah, no, my parents couldn't come up with a fucking name. They're just sitting there going,
Hey,
I
high
don't
five
know,
name
I don't
buddy.
know. And then there was a Curtis Trucking Company went over, and I'm like, how about Kurt? Yeah, sure, that works. That was it.
See, now I probably would have been named Matilda if I had been born on time, but because I was born 2.5 months early, they were like, holy shit, we kind of need a name.
Really? So, like, if they had had the time to think about it, they would have been like, God, Amanda, no.
No, it's just
Horrible
my
name.
great-grandmother's name was Matilda.
I don't think you need psychic powers as well.
I like the name Matilda.
No,
it's
it's
so
Sing
much better than
Matilda.
Amanda.
Well, sing
It's not better than
Matilda.
Amanda.
It's way better than Amanda.
Amanda suits you anyway.
I could also have a nickname that doesn't suck.
Maddie?
Yes. Maddie is a great nickname.
You're Mandy.
I hate Mandy.
Okay, but admittedly,
Shut
the
up,
song is
Mandy.
shit, but
If you notice, I just call you Manda all the time.
That's fine. That doesn't bother
Manda.
me. Amanda, yeah. Just drop
yeah,
it.
it's sort of like America.
America.
America. The correct pronunciation. America.
Anyway, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about a string of papers dealing with an early Cambrian lobopod, which is basically a sort of vermiform worm-like organism that these things are considered to be quite closely related to arthropods because they have a series of rather well-developed limbs.
Right, the modern, the common name, I guess, of these is the velvet worms.
Yeah, they're
Onychophora are a
they're
type
related.
of lobopod.
Yeah,
Right.
so lobopods are typically when we're talking about lobopods, or we're using that term, we're using the things that would eventually give rise to
Rise to
onychophorans.
onychophorans.
Bear in mind that it's only recently that people are really considering lobopods to be a real group.
Yeah, I mean,
That's true.
At least from all these analyses, it seems like lobopods are paraphyletic, that they're not actually a real clade or a real evolutionary grouping.
Yeah.
They're just giving rise to onychophorans.
It was a name given by Snodgrass, who was a very famous arthropod worker.
That's a fabulous name. I'd just like to throw that out there.
Basically, in order to try to get away from the fictitious annelids people were using in order to work out where arthropods came from.
Was this
Like,
is this going back to the...
like System Shock 2 annelids? Or?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're going back to like early arthropod work when they thought there were multiple originations for arthropod, and that it was various worms that were deriving arthropodization.
And basically, because he recognized that there were a number of onychophorine-like things, he called them lobopods and said these are most likely to be it. But people have still thought that arthropods might have independent origins, and therefore lobopods aren't a real group. They're just all over the place, and arthropods kept evolving from them. But this doesn't seem to be the case now.
So it's pretty much accepted that arthropods are monophyletic now?
It's I think, one of the big successes of the molecular revolution in terms of phylogenetics. They're real. This particular animal we're talking about is from the Cambrian of China, and it's called Diania cactiformis because...
Which is an awesome name.
It is an awesome name.
I don't like it.
You don't like cactiformis?
You don't like cactiformis?
Okay, it's not bad.
It's spiky.
He doesn't like cactuses.
I like cactus. I'm so sad Mountain Dew isn't made out of cactus juice. I feel so betrayed.
Okay, where did you hear this?
It was my brother.
Okay, it was your brother. I was just wondering whether or not this was like an English urban legend.
I think that's because we tend to assume, because we don't get it in England.
Yeah.
And why would we get it? Because who drinks cactus juice?
Well, why would you get it? Because Mountain Dew is terrible.
It's horrible.
I've been drinking it because I thought it's cactus juice.
I'm sorry, you're not actually doing something intrinsically American. We can get you some sarsaparilla, some other things. Yeah.
Anything other than Mountain Dew?
So
Mountain Dew.
That's right. I am going to France in
Mountain Dew.
Yep, Mountain Dew.
I hope you don't like Pepsi because you're not going to find it in France.
I don't like Pepsi.
There's Pepsi
I can't drink caffeinated beverages.
Pepsi's cheaper than Coke. Pepsi is everywhere in Europe.
Yeah.
If you go anywhere where you get a fountain drink, it's going to be Pepsi. It'll never be Coke.
I don't know. Sweden, all Coke, lots of Coke. I mean,
Well,
granted, I was getting...
that's because eugenically Coke is apparently better.
Well, that's because it contains...
I was getting it in a bottle, too, though. I was not actually getting fountain drinks. I was getting a bottle of Coke.
Yeah, you can get bottles and cans of Coke, but fountain drinks will always be Pepsi.
Fucking A, walking through St. Petersburg with a giant thing of Coca-Cola in Russia with all Russian written all over it. I'm sitting there in a park in St. Petersburg drinking a Coke going, I want to buy the world a Coke.
A giant thing of Coke.
Yeah, because I was in fucking St. Petersburg and I was getting, I think it was a 1.5 liter.
Oh my god.
It was some retarded size. It was huge, way bigger than any human being should drink in one sitting, and that was just the only
39
size.
gallon.
No, it wasn't 39 gallons.
So it was a big gulp.
It was like a big gulp worth of Coke, and I was sitting there thinking about the irony that I'm a child who survived through the end of the Cold War, drinking a Coca-Cola in fucking Russia.
Yep.
So Diania cactiformis,
Right.
was originally a Nature paper.
It still is a Nature paper. It
Yeah.
was described within a Nature paper.
And basically the main thing they thought was interesting was that because of the spikes and the way it was preserved, they thought that the limbs were arthropodized, which means basically they've got a hardened exoskeleton.
And they're
Lobopods
segmented.
themselves are very soft-bodied.
Yeah, just despite the fact that they have limbs and segmentation, they are soft-bodied organisms.
They are not sclerotic.
Yeah, and so this was put as the direct sister group to arthropods.
Yes. Actually, the paper describes the animal, and then it does a phylogenetic analysis to find the position of Diania relative to all of Arthropoda and Lobopoda. And why don't you guys continue? I got it.
And basically, I mean, this was a rather a big thing. I remember when it came out, it was in the news a lot. It's a very bizarre animal. If you look at most lobopods, they're very gracile, very thin, got very tubular legs.
This thing is fat.
This thing
and spiky.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the spikes that have brought to it being called cactiformis. It's a Nature paper, so they're a bit light on the methodology.
They have some supplemental material which is available online.
Yeah.
Did
But
anybody look that up? I know I didn't, actually. Sorry.
I've looked at it before, but I didn't this time.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance.
Yeah.
I think I've looked at it before, but yeah.
We actually all looked at this in arthropod class.
Yeah, I remember it from arthropods class, but...
And of course, at the time, everyone was really excited about this. I mean, it was a big thing. It was very interesting. It's the first time. It's suggesting that lipopods are way more diverse than people have thought.
Yes.
And that's still the case. But the main thing was the fact that they were suggesting that limbs had arthropodized, and that because of this, that the limbs sclerotized before the body segments.
Yeah, so that they're
Right.
basically, an arthropod is covered in a hard exoskeleton in both its limbs and also its body. This thing, they're only claiming that there is arthropods, not arthrodization versus
Arthropodization is
Arthropodization.
is the thing of the limbs, and arthrodization is of the body.
Okay.
And this had implications as well because anomalocarids, which we should talk about at some point, I guess.
Yes.
Because they're
Are
cool.
really big Cambrian animals that have these sclerotized frontal appendages, and some have sclerotized head shields. And what these people are suggesting then is that that at some level has happened convergently.
Yes.
Yep.
Mostly because within their phylogeny, they reconstruct this one organism, this one species, as being basal to all of what we refer to as Euarthropoda, the actual, modern groups of arthropods.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, the tree is amazingly well resolved.
Yeah, it's
For 3
almost
NPCs.
suspiciously
In
well
fact,
resolved.
it's suspicious because they say there are 3 most parsimonious trees, but there are no polytomies.
Yeah, they say there are 3 most parsimonious trees, but they don't show any So, a little bit of a refresher course, I guess, in phylogenetics. When you're showing your results, and you typically are going to show something called a strict consensus. Now, when you get your results, you're just trying to get the most parsimonious trees given your data. And often you will find that you can reconstruct your tree most parsimoniously in multiple different ways. So the way to present that kind of information is to do a strict consensus. And what this does is it basically gives you a consensus of the trees that, a tree that gives the evolutionary consensus of what all your other trees agree upon. And so when there is issues of not knowing which gives rise to what, as opposed to showing a normal branching-like pattern, it collapses everything into just coming out of one node. So as opposed to 2 different species coming, just the standard pattern for a tree is, this species gives rise to, is closely related to this species in a pair, and then that pair is closely related to that pair. If those 3 species, if we can't tell how one is related to another, they just all collapse to coming out of one node. So they claim to be showing a strict consensus. They actually mention it in the paper at some point that they show a strict consensus.
Yeah, and they say in the figure legend, this is a strict consensus of 3 trees found using a branch and bound search under implied weights k equals 2.
If there are 3 most parsimonious trees, then there has to be some incongruity. But their strict consensus tree, which they claim is a strict consensus, it has no polytomies. There's no collapsing of nodes to one point. Everything is perfectly resolved.
And so so what we're saying is that they had 3 most parsimonious trees, but then they gave us the strict consensus tree. Those 3 most parsimonious trees should differ.
Well,
in
yeah,
some way.
if you have 3 most parsimonious trees, they can't be the same
They can't be
tree.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So that means that there has to be some incongruity and there has to be some collapsing of nodes because we know that there is some degree of conflict in their data.
And they don't show that.
And the reason why this is important is because your optimization criteria for parsimony-based analysis is just the simplest tree. You're trying to find the most simple tree. And so if you get 3 most parsimonious trees, none of those 3 trees is any better or any worse. 2 of those 3 trees could show you a pattern that is consistent with each other, but that one final tree that doesn't, that's still important. It's equally valid because you have no way of determining which one is better or worse. Majority of your data does not equate to it. And so there should be some degree of conflict, some polytomy, some collapsing of nodes is what I'm referring to with polytomies. And it's not there, which is suspect. That is shady as shit.
The interesting thing, if you just look purely at their topology as well, is they say that this is a lobopod, but they retrieve lobopods as a monophyletic thing at the base, which is lobopodians plus onychophora. Then you have a paraphyletic grade of what you term radiodonta, which is your anomalocaridids, and beneath that, anomalcaridid-like taxa, which are things like Pamdalurian, Kerygmachila, and Megadictian. And these are described as lobopods, but they have forward-facing raptorial appendages. And then after you've got all of that, you've then got Diania, a sister group to Arthropoda. And that means that Diania is, by any definition, not a lobopod.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then they're claiming lobopods, but if their tree is taken at face value, then they're claiming that lobopods and onychophora don't form a real group. But all they've shown is that their one thing isn't a lobopod. If their tree is taken at face value, which considering it's not a fucking strict consensus tree, that's pretty fucking suspect.
Well, as far as this is the thing, as far as they presented it, what they're saying based off their tree isn't necessarily accurate.
Well, yes, they're claiming that it is a lobopod and that lobopods give rise to these things, but that's not what they're showing. They're showing that their data is suggesting that the Diania is not a lobopod, and that would be the more phylogenetically and taxonomically prudent way of defining that, as opposed to basically what they're having to do to make their data is they're having to claim that anomalocarids and everything else, they're all lobopods and onychophorans.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And to be honest, other than that, I mean, they go into details a bit about the importance of arthrodization and the fact that Diania shows no evidence of sternites or tergites, which is a big thing. That's
Define stergites and tergites.
These are sclerotized plates that you find ventrally for sternites and dorsally for tergites on each sequential segment of an arthropod. Arthropods, like all animals, are segmented. You don't notice it so much in vertebrates because it's internal, it's in your vertebra. And each one individually will have a hardened plate on it. And so what they're saying here is that Diania has no hardened plates, but that the limbs themselves are sclerotized, and so that each limb segment or podomere is an exoskeletal circulate that basically slot into each other in order to form the limb. They talk a lot about how, based on the tree they have, this has implications in terms of what evolved first and what characters were important for arthropods and whether anomalocaridids did things convergently. However, I'm just not... the main thing, actually, that I think we should mention is that in the arthropod limb, you don't notice it so much on your standard terrestrial organisms because they've all reduced it, but arthropod limbs are what we term biramous. So you have a walking limb and then a flap-like thing above it, and the walking limb is the endopod.
Biramous just refers to the fact that there are two limbs coming out of one base.
Yeah. And then the flap-like limb, which is the exopod. Now,
some arthropods have lost this secondarily, though.
Yeah. Your insects are uniramus, right?
Yeah, insects and arachnids.
Yeah, uniramus, again, one limb coming out of
and
the
they've
base.
all reduced the exopod, which is the flap-like thing. Now, in anomalocarids, alongside the body, they have these series of flaps, and people have been discussing for ages whether or not these flaps are homologous to the flap-like exopods or if they're their own thing. These authors sort of fall on the side that those things probably are homologous to the exopod flaps. But Diania only has the walking limb, the endopod, so they're then saying that exopod flaps and endopod limbs have evolved independently
multiple times.
Yeah. I think the real trouble, I think we should probably move on to the next bits pretty soon, because we can talk about this all the time, but given the problems with it, it's almost pointless.
Yeah. When this paper came out, it also came out with 2 separate comments and then a reply from the authors. Both comments are basically getting at the same thing, which is they took the data that was originally given in the original paper, and they ran the analysis exactly as they said they did, and could not replicate the results.
Yeah.
Got a way more parsimonious tree, which was way less resolved, and had Diania basally plotted with all the other lobopods,
Yeah.
and couldn't get anything with it being highly derived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The response from Lou was basically that they didn't actually do the method that they said they did in the paper.
Well, what they don't do is in the paper, they don't tell you about ordering of characters at all. And what they say the difference is that when they've got multi-state characters, so normal characters will be, you'll have something that's binary, which will be a 0 or 1, so present or absent, or if you have something that's only either blue or red. Or you could have something that's blue, red, or green. And you can either treat them so that characters can change between each one as they want, or you can order these multi-state characters so that it progresses from blue to red to green, from 0 to 1 to 2. And in their reply, they've said they have ordered their multi-state characters. But they don't say this in the paper, and that's one of the reasons why you couldn't retrieve the analysis.
No, it says analyses were performed with PAUP where multi-state characters were treated as ordered.
Yeah.
As unordered. They ran the analysis. So what they actually say, I thought, was that they ran the analysis. They got the trees that everyone else got. They picked one of the most parsimonious trees for character coding, and then they reran the analysis, fixing the groups that fixed the original tree that they picked. At least that's what I thought they said, which is basically that they fabricated the data.
Huh.
Well, this makes no sense. Multi-state characters are treated as unordered. Other characters were treated as ordered.
Yep, that doesn't make any sense. Well, yeah, no, totally. They are ordered because you have to have a more primitive versus a derived.
I mean,
They
here's
didn't
the
understand
thing.
that.
I mean, yeah, no, totally. This is what they say. They say they did. They're basically saying that
They took one
the
tree.
strict consensus was far too
strict. So they took one of the most parsimonious trees,
Yeah.
the one they liked, and then they saw the groups that defined, and then they reran the analysis, fixing those groups,
Yeah.
so that those groups couldn't
Well,
change.
yeah, they fixed lobopods as a thing, but they left Diania out of it, and they fixed arthropods as a thing.
Yes.
And then
And then they
you're
threw
gonna
in Diania.
you're gonna force those groups to exist, and then within those groups,
Which is why they got
it'll be
three
great.
most parsimonious trees
Yeah.
of 130 steps, whereas everyone else, when they ran their data, got a billion most parsimonious trees of 95 steps.
And I mean, here's the thing: these people, you can tell they don't know what they're doing. And I tell you how you can tell they don't know what they're doing, because they give you bootstrap values for their analysis in the reply, and they go, bootstrap values are always 100, sometimes higher. You can't get bootstrap values more than 100.
No, you can't.
No, you can't. I don't know anything about phylogenetics, and
So they
even
list
I know
every
that.
node as 100 plus and say
They give their Bremer support values, and their Bremer support values just look like their node numbers.
I mean, their Bremer support values are really, really high for
They're
fossil
just the
data.
number. They're just the ordering of the nodes. It's with the one is the most basal node, two is the next. It's not Bremer support.
No, that isn't Bremer support at all.
They pulled this out of their asses.
They have
and they fucking didn't even give the right methodology. And when people called them on it, they got another Nature paper out of it to fucking comment on this shit.
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing, and this is bad. This is the problem with some of the peer review, and this is the trouble with peer reviewers don't check supplementary material and don't check phylogenetic analyses properly. They
Yeah.
don't do it, and they should, because there's a lot of rubbish gets out.
Yeah, this is dog shit. I'm sorry.
The only reason, I mean, this would have got out because it was a cool fossil, and then people just accepted the tree as they'd given it.
Well, and they probably just wanted to have a tree on there because everything has to have a tree, and they had no idea how to do it, or if they did, they thought that they would maybe make an analysis which made it sound even better.
I mean, the one of the authors on this paper is a colleague of mine, and this also goes to show that it's really unfortunate sometimes the things that come out when you're working in research groups, because if you look at who did what, he did discussion.
Yeah, they ask questions.
And they put you on as an author, and you have no idea necessarily whether who's seen proofs for this or not.
That's true.
Yeah.
I know a couple of things about this that I've heard in rumors that I'll talk to you guys later. I might not say on the podcast just because it starts getting a bit more gossipy. But by and large, I mean, I'm not happy with this paper. They talk a lot as well about the absenting or inapplicabling issue, which
the gap coding issue, which is actually like the least of their concerns for the actual methodologies.
Well, what they talk about as well is they say basically if you have something that's present or absent as one character, and then a second character will be the shape of the thing if it's present, you can do one of two things. You can have present absent and then your second character be an absent round square, or you can go present absent and then the second character be round, square, or inapplicable. And inapplicable is treated by Palp and TNT as unknown.
Yes.
And it shouldn't add anything to the analysis. Now, if you're using DNA coding, it will treat it as a fifth state.
Yes, because it's the difference between an inapplicable and what we refer to as gap coding.
Yeah. And people that know a lot about phylogenetics have talked to me at length about why you shouldn't use inapplicable coding, because they can't get the idea that morphological parsimony does different things to gap coding in molecular analyses. And they talk about this at length. And then this leaves one question for me. Did they run this as a molecular analysis? Did they do it bad? This is why they're worried about it?
This is what the first comment was, is that they assumed that they had ran this as a molecular analysis as opposed to a morphological phylogenetic analysis. Because the only way they could get some of these topologies even close to this was that they had gap coding, they had inapplicables coded as gaps as opposed to inapplicables.
And this inapplicable or absent debate is something that Curtis and I talk about a lot. We fall slightly on different sides of it, but I think we both agree that as you're doing it, you need to see what the character's doing and decide to use the method that fits each time. You can't just constantly do the same thing.
Yeah, I'll agree. A slavish consistency is a problem here.
But it really does help if you know what you're doing, and I'm really sorry, but these people don't. The people that ran the analysis don't know what they're doing.
Either they don't know what they're doing, or they wanted a result and they found a way to get it.
Yeah.
Because there is some shady shit involved in picking one of your most parsimonious trees, the one that you really like, to code your characters, and then forcing everything to fit that tree, rerun your analysis, so you get less trees.
I mean, this is kind of what used to happen in the mid-90s, but they'd be more honest about it. Early phylogenetic analyses of fossil taxa, they'd say there are 235 characters, this is one MPT, but they would always tell you it's one of 235, and you knew to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, because 235, you didn't fucking have a tree at that point.
Yeah, well, it's surprising how many small clades can sometimes be consistent, but the larger.
Yeah, no, I'll give you. I've actually been able to recover some degree of information from that kind of noise,
but this is really hiding. This is
the shitty. They obfuscated it. They claimed there was a strict consensus when they were just giving one MPT, and they claimed that their methodology was different than what they did in their fucking comments. They came back in the comments and said, "Oh no, we did this whole other thing that we didn't tell you about," even though they described their methodology in fucking detail in the paper.
Yeah, I mean that's the you could get it. You could sort of explain it as them just not explaining stuff. Except for
out and out lying. I'm sorry.
Except for the legend to Figure 4, where they tell you what they did, and it isn't what they did.
Yes, it's a lie.
Yeah. I mean,
because you need to have a story, right? It's a great fossil, but if you want to push it that little extra bit, it's a missing link, and if it's a missing link, it's going to get into nature.
Yeah. I mean, it's just got to be big and sexy and I mean, arthropod phylogeny is a big thing still. There are lots of debates going around. I mean, I've got a paper I've just resubmitted that, it's the debate. We tried to explain everything that's gone so far. It's expanded from an 8-page paper to a 30-page paper, just because there is so much stuff going on around this sort of thing. This kind of fossil could be very important for this discussion. But when you end up treating it like this, all you do is make everything worse. Because there are going to be a lot of people that don't know enough to go through the comments and go, "Oh, so we shouldn't trust this tree."
Yeah. And I mean, if you want to just play the numbers game again, they got a Nature paper they technically got 2 Nature papers because they got to reply to the comments, even if their reply was, we didn't tell the truth in the first paper.
But they don't apologize at all.
No, they don't apologize. They just out and out say, "Oh no, we did these other methodologies we didn't tell you about."
But they try to tell the commenters that their way is better.
Yeah,
because they get a more resolved tree.
They get a more resolved tree, even though it's less parsimonious given their data, which is actually the only time you can probably really use that as a criticism.
But the annoying thing is that we see this kind of thing. This isn't the first time this has happened, in my experience.
Well, no, and it
no.
probably won't be the last, sadly.
Yeah.
I mean, this is getting back to arguments of early life and whether or not you can doctor your photos to make things look better than they actually are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's... The other thing they do is... This is one thing that I'm always wary of. They throw statistics at something and try to claim it shows them something. So they do the paired tail permutation test or something like that. I can't remember if it's not on this page.
Oh, yeah. They
Partitioning tail permutation test. And they get a p-value of 0.01. And what this test does, I can't go into the details because I'm very sketchy on it, mainly because it's not actually that useful.
It's difference from random, right? That's
yeah.
all it is.
Does it show phylogenetic signal? And they go, yes, so this shows that there's clear phylogenetic signal with morphological data also strongly supporting the topology shown. No. It just means that there is phylogenetic signal. You get phylogenetic signal if you're looking at something that's evolved. If I was to do a phylogeny of fucking tables, I wouldn't get a strong signal. If I'm gonna do
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, depends whether or not you're going like types of tables through time.
How
There's
many
probably
legs,
influence. I mean, Christ, you could probably do
rectangular,
phylogenics.
circular.
You could probably do phylogenics of goddamn pottery and show some degree of an evolutionary signal.
yeah.
Fucking A, of course you could.
So what they're doing is they're picking a statistical test and then throwing it at something that it doesn't apply to in order to try to support
Well,
themselves.
all it is difference from non-random, and usually those types of tests are for when you're concerned that your sample size or your character size is so small that it's possible for you to get a seemingly significant looking result through just random chance. That doesn't necessarily mean that just because you pass that test that you're right. It just means that your statement is non-random. That's it.
I mean, that test you do before you get your topology. That's just on the data.
Yeah, I think what they're actually looking at is they're looking at a tailed test, so they're looking at the parsimony landscape and where they land on the parsimony landscape. So it's actually something that happens in PAUP when you're running the analysis.
But that's for the data set. Doesn't matter what tree you get.
Totally.
You can force a different tree and it will get the same result. You can force a tree that is the longest possible tree you could get out of that, and your PTP test will give you a 0.01.
Well, yeah, because you're on the other end of that tail, but regardless, you're non-random. Yeah, it's looking strictly at the data and making sure that you're not just in a random data distribution. It has nothing to do with the actual topology being right or wrong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I guess this is kind of a cautionary tale of not to come down harsh on phylogenics, because...
Not to come down harsh on phylogenetics, just this paper.
But, I mean, this is a cautionary tale of you really do need to check what people are doing all the time.
Yeah.
And it needs to be... There's a big push for open access papers, and I understand that. I find it sometimes a bit irritating, but your data and your methods should always be repeatable, otherwise it's not science.
Clarity.
Yeah.
Obfuscating your methodology just so that you can get a Nature paper is shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Seeing as there's not too much we can say, shall we have a break and then get back onto the redescription?
Yeah,
which,
sure.
Which takes things from a different angle entirely.
A very different angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing with Metal Gear, big thing with Metal Gear was that, it was a walking nuclear platform. It was a tank with legs. Big fucking deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, have you ever played MechWarrior?
Shit.
Well, you know, Japanese, they love their giant robots.
Yeah, they love their giant robots. I can
Yeah,
understand
I mean, you have a tank with walk. I have a tank that can fly. We called it a bomber.
Man.
I have a tank that could fight from space. It's called an orbital platform.
I mean, really, when you think about it, where the direction of the series goes, how fucking crazy it goes into PMCs and various other, like, computers controlling society, like, you gotta remember that it all comes down to, ultimately, there is this tank that can launch nuclear devices,
Well,
and
this
that's
is
the worst thing.
it's like the tank is the thing, but the games are about the characters.
Yeah.
But then it makes no sense. It's like the big twist of like you've been shooting yourself for the entire game.
I think Kojima is brilliantly insane. Like, that man knows fucking insanity at levels that fucking Victorian playwrights don't even.
Either that or he's trying to get himself fired so he can go do other projects.
I wonder that. I really do. I wonder if, like, each time he's like, fuck, another Metal Gear. Okay, this time I've got to make one that people are gonna hate, right? I'll do something even, like, crazier. So fucking stupid. There's no way.
He has
fucking
projects that he wants to work on that Konami goes, no, you Metal Gear.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if he's like, man, this time, the Patriots, they're all just robots inside the walls of the fucking White House. Yeah, sure, we'll do that.
Here we go. Main character, Raiden.
Next
The cyborg.
next game, like 70% of it's cutscenes. It's gonna annoy the shit out of people. They're gonna stop playing.
But there's random quick time events, but they won't tell you what button you have to press.
And by pressing the wrong button, you change the story.
And it's
changed the story.
But the buttons
That's Shenmue, and Shenmue was awesome.
but the buttons cycle each time you play.
Each time you play, it's a different button.
It's a different experience.
Different experience, different button.
So when your character
All
gets
right,
crippled,
before
when
we
your character
decide to
gets
start a game development company, maybe we should.
when your character gets crippled, random buttons will stop working on your controller.
Oh, that'd be great! That'd be great! That is so fucking Kojima! Like, I mean, this is the man who basically had us pull out the player 1 slot, put it into player 2, so that we could get past mind reading. What the fuck?
Yeah.
They said, man is a brilliant genius, or he desperately wants to get out of his job. I don't
Please
know which.
Fire me so I can go make the game I want.
I just want to make a sweet little indie piece, maybe with like pixel graphics. It's gonna be so pretty.
It's the thing about rabbits, but you have to put controller in port 2 in order to control all the rabbits, and there are quick time events. But if you don't hit the right button, the game just resets.
See,
No, in order to
And wipes your
quick time events,
save.
the controller has to be in port 1.
I know very little actually about the Metal Gear series, but I do have a theory that in Kojima's mind, it is set in a video game.
That would make sense.
It would explain a lot, really.
It's a video game.
No, but it's
That's
like
what it
it is the most meta of meta.
Well, like the very last one, he looks up and goes, I thought my score would be higher.
Well, you know, I'm thinking Max Payne style. You're in a video game, Max.
Snake Eater. When Snake is, in the bed, you could play Galaga.
Well, that's an homage. That's an homage to the fact that it's Namco, right? Oh no, it's Konami. Konami is the only one that has the patent to playing a video game while a loading screen comes up. So if you want to ever do that,
Yeah,
you
because
have to,
that's also in Blades of Steel.
yeah,
Which
if you want to do that, you have to pay Konami because they came up with it for the NES. You could play fucking Galaga when in between rounds in Blades of Steel for the NES, and they came up and they patented that. So yeah, that is just totally an homage to a fucking meta video game thing.
Yeah. Hey everyone, welcome back. So now we're going to move on to
the redescription.
The redescription.
Redescription. Although I personally think we should just keep talking about video games.
We can do that. I like that. So anyway,
We're now a science/gaming podcast.
if we were to
No,
redescribe...
because you know what that is.
Wait, what is that?
No, we're the opposite, James.
Wait, what?
That's almost every podcast ever that tries to talk about games, because all that ever happens is they start talking about weird fucking science.
Yeah, except we're trying to talk about weird fucking science, and we end up talking about video games.
We're not gonna do the whole bombcast thing and accidentally talk about things that could kill you.
You mean like?
I mean, if you wanted to.
You mean like
no,
Nightshade?
we are not fucking doing that, Randall. We are not going to talk about fucking sinkholes, black holes, earthquakes.
deadly nightshade.
You mean fucking tomatoes? You just hate tomatoes because they're related to they are part of the nightshade family, but they are not toxic.
Tomato.
Tomato,
I bet
tomato,
Danny-
potato.
Nobody says potato.
I bet Danny
Uh,
could kill you.
I think Louis Armstrong sings it in that one point.
No one says potato though.
Do you think it was venomous?
What venomous?
What?
The potato?
Danny.
Diania, do you think it was
No.
venomous? We have no way of knowing.
Although I'd love
Christ.
to throw that in somebody's face.
I was fielding questions on Facebook yesterday where somebody said, "So Euryptrids, they're really cool. They catch fish. They're probably venomous, right?" And I was like, "No, there's no evidence. There's no vesicle in the telson. There's no bulbous area. You just can't say." And then the guy goes, "Well, Mother Nature wouldn't create stuff because it looked cool. I mean, it's got to have a function, right? And I pasted up Gould into one, and I said, first of all, read this. And then I said, okay, I should be talking about the Mixopterus telson, put a picture of that up. Does this look like a scorpion's telson? Put up a scorpion telson. It looks nothing alike. Also, the scorpion telson, the vesicle is open to the air when it injects venom. Doesn't work in an aquatic system.
That'd be a little
that'd be.
And then all the other arthropod workers were like, yeah, just James is right.
Was that was that a crowning moment? Just knowing that
no, because the guy was like, "Well, I guess," and I'm like, "Why do you ask a question of experts when you're not going to like the answer? You just want to be right."
That's what everyone does. They ask questions that they don't want the answers to.
Yep.
It makes you feel.
Where he
good.
wanted the answer to be, yeah, these things were bitchin'. They just stabbed things with their tails and injected them with venom, and they ate them alive.
Well, why would they eat them alive if they injected them? And wouldn't they be dead when they injected them with venom?
Not necessarily. Some things are still alive.
Oh, that's true. Paralysis.
Everybody knows in every horror film that it's only scary if the person is technically still alive when they're eaten.
Right. Anyway.
Oh, I really wish I had a cricket sound effect for that. That would have been great.
What, you've never seen The Hills Have Eyes?
I refused to watch that when we were in Germany. In Germany, in the fucking mountains, living in a small community.
Good call.
Marcus wanted to put on The Hills Have Eyes, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go to bed. See ya. Went up to the loft, and I go up to the loft, and Dave comes up later, and there's just World War I guns up there, along with just bookshelf after bookshelf of Pennsological literature, and I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel.
Well, you just need to protect your Journal of Paleontology and your paleontology articles and your Acta Paleontologica Japonica from all the horrifying freaks that are outside and desperately want to take your paleontology literature during the end times.
Or they just want to eat your baby.
No, they want the paleo literature. That's why you're stockpiling with
it's
the
very
guns.
near the Mosel Valley. Lots of good wine.
Okay, yeah, no, good choice. Wait, was that in Frankfurt?
This is when I went to Frankfurt.
Yeah, I went to a winery around Frankfurt, had Riesling. It's probably the only time I've ever liked Riesling in my entire life.
Yeah. I guess we should talk about Diania, which probably wasn't venomous.
Diania probably was not venomous, but it was spiny and cactiformis-y looking.
But how spiny?
How spiny was Diania actually? Well, this is what the re-description is going to be looking at. So they're basically looking at the original specimens and also some new specimens as well.
New stuff that was available when this Nature paper came out.
Yes.
But was suspiciously absent from the Nature paper?
Well, I mean, in China it's very difficult to get access. If you're part of one research group, other research groups will refuse to do work with you because it's all very competitive.
Right. Because of potential payment issues.
Yeah. So, and they I'm just seeing if any of the authors were on it. No, none of the same authors.
Yeah, none of the original people are on the redescription.
And basically, this redescription steps aside from the original work and just sort of reevaluates it from the ground up, more or less.
Yeah, it does point out things where it does agree with some of the descriptions, but I think the key points that they look at when they're actually looking at the specimen is that they attack the notion that these legs have been sclerotized, that they've actually been arthropodized, that they have hard parts. And mostly they attack it on the grounds that you see them splayed out in various positions as though they've been bent on top of each other, which isn't something you'd expect if there was any rigidity to the specimen at all.
Yeah.
I mean, they figure other lobopod specimens, and the lobopod legs always look heavily wrinkled. The way you can tell if a limb is arthropodized is because it'll have what's called a pivot joint. So there'll be a dot on near the top of the joint, and this will be where it articulates. And they figure a number of arthropods that will show this, and they figure a number of lobopods that don't show this, and they figure Diania, which doesn't show this.
Yeah, potentially problematic if you're wanting to claim that this is actually a proto-arthropod.
Yeah. And I mean, given how phylogenetic analysis works, if these things aren't arthrodized and they were coding it as arthrodized, that might be one of the reasons they were getting thousands of trees when they tried to do the real analysis.
Well, yeah, if you have a few characteristics that are uniting things higher up on the tree, and everything else is what we refer to as plesiomorphic or more primitive conditions, then it's not going to know what to do, because either it needs to invent a whole bunch of new independent ad hoc assumptions of evolution and have these things evolve independently multiple times, or it's just going to pull everything down because it doesn't know where the fuck it goes.
Mm-hmm. And basically, they go into the main thing they go into is in detail is they just talk about the legs mostly. They do their own analysis as well.
Yeah, they do another phylogenetic analysis, which this one does it have? It has some polytomes in it, right? It's a
I
strict
think
consensus.
so. I mean,
so, yeah.
the cool thing is that they do another reconstruction, which looks almost identical, but it just has a few minor changes. The spines aren't really spiny now; they're just extensions of the leg.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not hardened spines
Yeah.
like they were originally interpreted as.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, they've got and the other interesting difference is they've reconstructed it so that all the legs are touching the ground. The reconstruction in the Nature paper has it sticking its back end up in the air for some reason. And that makes...
Oh, is that the back end?
Where's that the front end?
I thought that was the front end.
That's the back end.
It's an end.
That's like the abdomen.
Oh, I thought that was the front end.
I think...
I thought the expanded area was the front end. It's hard to tell with lobopods.
The trailing limbs that are oriented backwards are a characteristic of some lobopods, I think. So I think that end is the back end.
But it's pointed backwards at both ends.
No, these ones, the posterior...
Sharply pointed.
Yeah.
Backwards. Oh, okay.
Regardless, while we're pointing at pictures that no one else can see,
Oh,
let's
right.
keep
Yeah.
going.
Anyway.
But again, they've put it in a life habit in the Nature paper that it wouldn't be in. So just
Yeah, it clears up some potential incongruities.
Yeah.
Other things that they look at, which I think is interesting comparatively, is when they're comparing it to other lobopods, they're noting that the limbs are at least very distinct from other lobopods, and that they don't break out into like little claw-like structures that are typically found in other lobopods.
Mm-hmm.
And this actually helps to explain why, in their analysis, they do quite the contrary. They reconstruct Diania as being very basal within Lobopodia, as opposed to being very derived within Arthropoda.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Diania is in a polytony.
Yeah, Diania, the exact position of Diania isn't perfectly known.
Yeah. They generally get the same kind of... The arthropod of the tree is generally kind of... the same thing. Interestingly enough as well, they don't get onychophorans nested deeply within the other lobopods here.
Yeah, okay, so the onychophorans are split within the lobopods?
Onychophorans clade with tardigrades in a basal polytomy here.
That's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
And then they go on to talk about the mode of life and stuff, and that's always going to be very highly...
Yeah, mode of life questions are always
Yeah.
ultimately subjective. I mean, unless we have rare situations where we have direct traces that we can compare to, or various other identifying factors, it's very difficult to determine what these things actually were doing, and we're basically just making a best guess based upon uniformitarian assumptions.
Yeah.
So is there anything much else that we want to talk about with the redescription? Very specific things we want to mention?
I don't know. Not particularly. I mean, for me, it was all mostly about the arthropodization. I don't know if anybody else has any...
I mean, I think this makes more sense compared to what happened with Lou's original paper, which is it makes more sense that this thing isn't really arthropodized, and it is just related to a sister group.
Yeah, and we're not needing to do things like reverse, having the growing of these great big frontal appendages or anything like this. It is interesting that you definitely seem to get a clade of lobopods.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. And that and then this means that the raptorial frontal appendage things like Pandalurian and Megadictian, while they're lobopod-like, probably aren't strictly lobopods. They're their own thing that is a paraphyletic grade leading to arthropods.
And I mean, it makes sense if we expect the Onychophora lobopodia lobopod onychophoran thing to be sister, that they probably are deriving from a similar common ancestry at some point. And the things going on to Euarthropoda would probably look a little bit closer to arthropods, but would have characteristics that they share in common plesiomorphically with the lobopods, because they have them primitively or ancestrally, as we like to refer to.
Yeah. The other interesting thing is that this analysis doesn't suggest whether the lobopod clade is closer to arthropods than the onychophoran one is, or whether the onychophorans are. And it's very interesting not to get onychophorans within the lobopods because, other than a definite carboniferous onychophoran, I don't think we have many onychophorans in the fossil record. So people liked these lobopods to be stem onychophorans because it filled a gap And this is suggesting that maybe this isn't the case. They're related, but they're not ancestral in any meaningful sense.
Well, I mean, they potentially are. There's an element of meaningfulness that they're a sister, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Yep.
But this large number of species don't form a paraphyletic grade to Onychophora. They are in their own grade. They're clade in their own right.
And that's kind of to be expected. I mean, it's not. I mean, paraphyletic grades they're obviously occurring, but often you'll see in the fossil record that there are things that we would think might be, something that would obviously be paraphyletic or grade into, but they might actually form their own unique group because they have their own ability to differentiate independently of the thing that they're closely related to.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these things are what we'd call derivatives of the stem group. So rather than direct ancestors, they are offshoots that will have their own autapomorphies or their own defining characteristics. These things will speciate, and that's how you get clades at all.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's to be expected in a way, but it's interesting, given that a lot of people have evoked these as being a paraphyletic grade.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's just you need to run analyses when you're making these assumptions, and it's actually kind of cool in a way if this thing that was originally named as it's probably just not a meaningful group, but we need a name for it, if it actually is potentially meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else to add?
No.
I think we're sort of drawing to a close, even though it's not been that long.
Well, it's kind of been a weird week for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all because of Metal Gear.
God damn it, Metal Gear.
Yeah.
Snake! I can't really do it. I'm not good at it.
Snake-o!
Why'd you have to go all racist with it?
He could have done it worse. He could have been doing this.
They can't see that in an audio
And-
podcast,
and that's
James.
something we can be thankful for.
Yep.
That's
exactly.
very true, actually. I'm very proud that we can't show people that.
I guess the big problem with discussing this is once you've gone through something that was so bad as the original Nature paper, that something that's done it better just, there's just not so much to say.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the interesting issue is that the original Nature paper, for as problematic as it is, it was trying to pose an interesting idea.
Yeah.
But it was doing so potentially at the expense of its own credibility. Then comes along this paper to fix all the problems, and what you find is that things really aren't as magnificent and fantastical as the Nature paper had made it seem. Instead, it's more or less what we would expect.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was very interesting as well is in their reply to the comments, the original authors said that they were glad that this paper had elicited more interest in the field and that more research was now ongoing.
But
which
they were also
itself is kind of a straw man because there was always research ongoing and no one new has started doing this stuff.
But they even went one step further and they said that because this paper has had so many comments, it proves that Diania is so important in understanding the evolution of arthropods.
No,
which it
proves
doesn't
the paper
because
wasn't that,
Good.
it's the best way to
and
spin shit.
it probably would have been a better paper if they would have lopped off the tree.
It probably wouldn't have gotten into Nature if they had lopped off the tree because they couldn't have had any evidence or evidence in quote marks, let's be honest. They wouldn't have anything pushing this towards being stem arthropods, which is what they tried to claim.
The problem is if you don't include the tree, it's all hand waving. There's no evidence at all to back up what you're saying.
Well, let's be honest. Their tree was hand waving.
If you do
There's
the tree,
clear segmentations on the holotype.
if you do
Well,
the
but the
segmentation
revision
is
says those segmentations aren't real, that they're just wrinkles that you see in every single lobopod.
exactly, but segmentation is part of being an animal as well. It's like the interesting thing about trilobate arthropods. All arthropods are trilobate. Every single one. It's just that trilobites have really deep furrows around the axis.
Yeah.
You know. So it's just one of those things. And if they'd done the analysis correctly, it wouldn't have gotten to Nature.
That's
That's
true.
the trouble.
And yeah.
Because their entire reply themselves, they're saying, it's like, well, when you looked at if you did a strict census of all the trees, it's just a polytome and you couldn't really tell anything, so this is why we did this. And it's like, but that's honest. It's just honesty isn't always going to be high profile.
Yeah.
That's the horrifyingly depressing thought. It's okay, though, because the giant walking tanks that are nuclear devices will soon end all... I don't even... That really doesn't work outside of the Cold War, does it?
No,
Like,
it really doesn't.
that's why they pulled
Not
in the
since
PMCs,
North Korea
right?
opened up the hotline again.
Oh shit, you're right though. We got
Oh,
North
did they?
Korea. Man.
Yeah, they're now talking to the South again.
Oh, yeah, that's not surprising.
They are.
They need cake.
Cake.
So guys, everybody else is calling us on our bluff. You have any advice?
Well, I mean, there was also because they kept releasing footage of the parades, people got to have a real good look at the missiles and go, these are things made out of wood and tinfoil.
Yeah.
They're not real missiles at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's potentially problematic for them then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, anyway, I've been Kurt,
I've been Randall.
I'm Amanda.
I'm James.
and Snake.
Snake go!
God damn it, Randall.
This is why we can't have nice things.
No,
No, you're why we can't have nice things.
What? Why the fuck is she why we can't have nice things? You're the one who went Snake-o-doo.
She's the one leaving the country.
Well, he does have a point there. But I'll be back. I'm not going for as long this time.
That doesn't
3
make
weeks
But we-
versus 13 months.
But we have everything we need while you're gone, and then you'll be Skyping in from Michigan. So.
Yes.
That's true. We're good.
Yep. I will be available in Michigan, except my parents do want to go canoeing.
You'll be available in Michigan? I was say, is this like a situation where you just leave a number or what?
You get in contact with Amanda.
This is the beginning of like a date hotline.
It's like available to anyone.
What? No.
Well,
No,
no,
James, you have to be in Michigan.
that is the angriest face I think I've ever seen you give.
You just touched my foot twice. Oh, sorry. It's okay. Are you coming on to me?
No! What have I done to deserve this?